Hello everybody, it is DJ Pony here bringing you a first, it's a special fan fiction reading for you guys. This was made by Princess Luna. I'll link you guys down to her channel. She wrote this story. I said I'd do a commentary for her. And actually by the time I'm reading this, I noticed she posted a second story called The Student of Sparkle. So I expect you guys would want me to read that too. Thing is, that thing's like 3 times longer than this story, which is already really long. So you guys are gonna expect readings from me for a while. It's gonna take a while to finish them all. But today, we're gonna be doing the first part of The Uninhabited by Princess Luna. So let's begin. The day began as any other in Ponyville's history. The sun rose in a bright yellow glisten as the new day dawned. The sky became crimson as the night slowly faded away and gave welcome to the new date. The town whispered with a strange lack of chatter in the plaza, but not a thing was askew. A single orange filly was quietly walking through the shifting crowd, not a target destination in sight. Amidst the quiet crowd, a loud coughing fit disturbed the peace. Suddenly, a single mare stole the attention of every pony, lying on the ground, coughing up a storm of wheezing and hacking. A group of ponies, including the orange filly, shifted their gaze around the sickly mare. "Please, make it stop," the sick mare pleaded while coughing hysterically. The orange filly stood there as the mare began coughing up a black, tar-like substance beside her. As the mare rolled over on her other side, a buzzing of whispers ensued. "What in the name of Celestia is wrong with her? It's not like anything I've ever seen," a single stallion said as he observed the tar-like substance beside her. "We need to get her to a doctor now," another pony shouted amongst the crowd. As the conversation rose, the orange filly walked around to get a better look of the sick mare's face. It was awful. The pupils had dilated, almost completely covering her bloodshot eyes. Her stomach was distended, almost 3 times its normal size. Her skin was covered in blood-red sores, bursting with a sickly greenish color as she moved her sweat-drenched hair, and her breathing was short and wheezy. The filly could do nothing but stand in horror as she watched the mare reel over in agony. Suddenly, the mare grabbed the filly by the hoof, scaring her almost to death as she looked up at her eyes. "It's not too late for you," the mare said as she hacked again. "Leave while you can," the mare said as she laid her head back down on the ground. The filly had no idea what this meant. Too late for what? Just as she began pondering this question, the mare hacked and wheezed for the last time, twitching as her eyes became glossy and her shallow breathing began to stop, her hoof still grasping the filly's leg. The mare slowly died in front of her as she watched in silence, and the crowd slowly moved away. Amongst the crowd, a unicorn doctor dressed in a solid white lab coat managed to make his way to the now dead pony. "Time of death, 10:45 a.m., the pony said saddened as he closed the mare's eyes while still looking at his watch. "She's dead?" Another pony spoke anonymously in the crowd. "I'm afraid so. This is nothing like what I've seen in my medical journals," the pony said, as he turned back and broke away from the crowd circle. "Perhaps someone in Canterlot knows." "You can't just leave her there," another pony spoke back at the doctor. "I don't plan to," the doctor said as he entered his house, no more than 200 feet away. A moment of silence fell upon the town as Philly's leg remained connected to the mare's hoof. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the doctor exited his house with a white sheet in his mouth. He slowly walked over to the body as the silk fabric brushed up against the dirt-covered ground. He hesitantly placed the sheet over the pony and released the grip of the dead mare from the filly and heaved her over his shoulder as the crowd remained quiet. He then walked over to an empty carriage and proceeded to place the body in the back carefully and sat next to it. "It would be helpful if someone could give me a lift," the doctor said sternly. Without another word, 2 Pegasi broke from the crowd and walked over to the carriage, the sound of their hoofs making the only noise at the time. Just before the carriage took off, the filly sprinted towards the carriage, determined to follow them. As the carriage wheels began to lift off the ground, the filly jumped into it with a thud. At first, the doctor was aggravated. This filly just wasted valuable time, but later came to terms with himself as they headed off. For what seemed like an eternity, the filly and the doctor kept their eyes locked on each other, not a single word spoken. "Why did you follow me? Do you know her?" the doctor said as he pointed towards the sheet. The filly did nothing but shake her head as she looked down at the sheet. She had a burning sense that she needed to stay with the body. As the silence fell again, the sound of the carriage landing on the ground struck them back to reality. The doctor proceeded out of the carriage, the dead mare on his shoulder, as the filly followed close behind. The whole town of Camelot had fallen silent when the two left the carriage, just as Ponyville did. The two walked through the town as the streets had completely cleared and headed towards Celestia's castle. The guards surprisingly had no problem letting two unknown ponies carrying a sheet into the castle of the princess, but perhaps stranger things had happened. The princess was seen sitting on her throne, talking to one of her subjects quietly. "I have heard what has happened. I see you brought the body with you," Celestia said as she remained in her seat, eyeing the orange filly. "Princess, I have studied the history of every disease ever recorded, and I have not seen anything like this. Perhaps you know what this is," the doctor said as he placed the mare on the ground. The princess rose from her throne and walked towards the sheet. The doctor removed the sheet to reveal the mare's face. Celestia couldn't help but be appalled by what she had seen, and nervously stepped back. The filly stood by, doing nothing but observing Celestia's reaction. "I have not seen an illness like this in my life. Thank you for showing me this. I shall begin an investigation immediately," Princess Celestia said as she returned to her throne. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an extremely important message to deliver," Celestia said as she fetched a note and quill. "But, Princess, what will we do with the body?" the doctor asked. "Leave it here. She will be given a proper burial immediately," Celestia said as she looked up from writing. "Thank you, Princess," the doctor said as he turned around, taking the filly with him. The walk back to the carriage was met with a buzzing of confusion amongst the citizens of the town as they discussed what had happened. They nonchalantly climbed into the carriage and proceeded back to Ponyville. The two spent the entire flight looking at each other, not speaking a word, but rather pondering the sudden death of the pony. The flight returned to Ponyville, the entire town now waiting outside the carriage. The two exited as thousands of eyes fell upon them, all begging for answers. Amid the crowd, one pony rose and spoke. "What did you find out?" The unidentified Pegasus spoke. "Citizens of Ponyville, I have an announcement," the doctor shouted, trying to keep everyone's attention. All eyes suddenly fixated on the doctor as he stood on top of the carriage. "I am afraid we have just witnessed the first casualty of a currently unidentified disease. Please take any proper safety precautions at this point, sanitize any surface which may spread the disease, avoid contact with anyone or anything which may be infected, and take any other precautions you find suitable. No one is sure how this disease spreads or how infectious it is." The entire town suddenly became stricken with fear as thousands of questions from hundreds of ponies buzzed throughout the town center, all directed at the preaching stallion. "Everyone, I need your attention once more," the doctor shouted at the crowd. "Please cease any side conversations at this point." The entire town dulled from a buzzing of noise to a whisper quiet in an instant. "Thank you. I am afraid I cannot answer any of your questions. At this point, I must discuss with the mayor for further action," he said as he jumped off the carriage and walked through the dense crowd. And that is it for this reading. Princess Luna asked me to make it, 7 to 8 minutes long, so I'm trying to stay within that time frame. It's a very interesting story. It does get more interesting as we keep going on, so stay tuned. I'll try to upload the second chapter tomorrow, I guess, or the second part. And have a wonderful day, guys.